But all of a sudden you got this key ring. It's like, look, I've got 60 properties now. Pretty wild ride you've had.
Yeah.
You've seen it all.
It's kind of fun hearing you say that all back. I'm like, I didn't realize the perception out there of like, all of a sudden this happens, right? There's a lot of work behind the scenes, but there's just that's the joy of social media, right? You just kind of see, oh, all of a sudden this happens. But it's fun. It's fun to think that like, yeah, I've lived a couple lives, you know, looking at the different things that I've ventured into.
Right on. Boom, shakalaka. Got Jeremy Neves in the house today doing a podcast with you. Bro, like I met you at a pretty cool event. Met you with Jason Harward at, what was the name of that event we met at?
BU.
Yeah. Actually, that event was very eye-opening. I learned a lot of things at that event.
Yeah.
My favorite thing I think I got out of there was working, not working, new choice. Dude, oh, and then how do you vote? Red or black?
Yeah.
And so
now we can't tell the rules to the games, but we can tell about what we learned, right?
Dude,
it's experiential training. Yeah, it was great.
Dude, it was life-changing.
It was super powerful.
I look at him like, dude, I actually discovered that I wasn't playing that game very effective in my own life, working, not working, new choice. And I'm like, dude, it's so obvious. Like, I don't know why I was missing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's crazy. The simple things that we just fall into habits of not doing or doing. And you have to have somebody show you the blind spot so you can make those changes.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a cool event. Great place to meet.
Heck yeah, dude. So, got to give you a little background on you. So, you are now into investing in other companies or flipping in the brokerage business. In fact, people know you so well, you said, hey, I'm looking to broker businesses. You already know who I am. And you had 10 new clients in one day. Dude, that's nuts, bro.
One story post. I said, hey, if you know anybody or looking at selling a business, let me know. I'd love to help you sell your business. And I got 10 solid referrals. So
10 solid referrals.
Yeah.
But see, and they knew that you created a door knocking company, scaled it up to millions. Then you went and you bought one. I swear it was like one weekend. You wound up with 60 rentals. Maybe it wasn't a weekend, but it sure looked like it.
Than that, but yeah.
But all of a sudden you got this key ring. It's like, look, I've got 60 properties now.
Yeah.
How do you like them apples?
Yeah.
So you did that one. And then like one day I see all of a sudden you're out there back east and you're like, we're in the business buying dental practices. And then you're out there shopping and gobbling up dental companies. And I was like, what the heck? So then I'm like, I've been following your story for a long time. The next thing you know, you got, all right, we're bringing this consulting group in. All of a sudden, all these dudes showed up like, I want to be a part of your team. I want in. And then you had all these guys in there. And then all of a sudden you had Iron Cowboy come and speak and a couple different guys speak.
Yeah.
So pretty wild ride you've had.
Yeah.
You've seen it all.
It's kind of fun hearing you say that all back. I'm like, I didn't realize the perception out there of like, all of a sudden this happens, right? There's a lot of work behind the scenes, but there's just that's the joy of social media, right? You just kind of see, oh, all of a sudden this happens. But it's fun. It's fun to think that like, yeah, I've lived a couple lives, you know, looking at the different things that I've ventured into.
I mean, it is nuts because you're still young, dude. Like
I don't feel it, but yeah.
Yeah, but you're younger than I am, bro.
I think so. Maybe a couple years.
Couple years.
I'm 35. What are you, 40?
Bro, thanks, man. I think I'm 46.
46?
Yeah.
With
so I
got 8 kids?
Yeah, I got 8 kids, 46 years old. We now have separate pillows. So we're not sharing no more.
There you go.
Thinking about getting a TV.
There you go.
See if that'll help.
Yeah.
But I think we're done.
Yeah.
So, and then you just adopted a kid.
I did.
So, and that was pretty legit. Your story on that was even wild. Because, like, I've seen people go through adoption and what'd you say? You said you were working on 25 different cases to be able to adopt. Yeah,
we said yes to 25 children that didn't work out before we ended up pairing and matching with a birth mother and actually finalizing it. Yeah.
And actually finalizing it. And it all came back to one thing that you did. You're good at social media because you put one request out there. Hey, we're looking to adopt a child. How many requests how many shares did you get on that in one day? I
think it was shared 25,000 times.
25,000 times.
Yeah. That's by far more than anything else I've ever posted, but I think people knew the journey we were on and all the heartache and everything else, and have a lot of, powerful friends that shared it and got their people to share it. So yeah, it's crazy when you have something big that's really important, it's aligned, that people are bought into. It's crazy the support that shows up.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
all of a sudden they just come out.
Yeah.
So then you found a birth mom right here local that said, hey, we're only 20 minutes away.
Yep.
We'd be interested in meeting.
Yeah. We spent 2.5 years working with different agencies and spent a ton of money, ton of time, tons of paperwork, jumping through the hoops, said yes to 25 babies that didn't work out. And after 2.5 years, we're like, you know, my wife and I were kind of feeling defeated, and we're like, hey, as a Hail Mary, let's put this on social media. Originally, we had decided we weren't going to go the social media route because it can open up the door for some awkward situations and some tough decisions and really letting people into your life in a very vulnerable way. And we just, at that time, we didn't feel comfortable with it. But at this point, we're like, this is all we've got. We put it out there, and within 24 hours, somebody who lived, again, we were working all over the country, 20 minutes away, said, hey, I'm pregnant, thinking about placing my baby for adoption. I'd love to meet you guys. Then the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
And like when I didn't catch all the journey, the precursor to that. But after the time that you've been adopting, I have been following that journey ever since. Boy, that birth mom's coming over. You guys are going out on activities, doing things together. She gets to spend time with the child and like that's cool.
Yeah. It was interesting. During the process, before we were able to start the adoption process, I think the state required it, that we had to do a certain number of hours of learning about adoption.
Yeah.
And so we went to this adoption course, and they talked about all the different elements of adoption, birth moms, kids that had been placed for adoption, all the different elements. And one of the things they did is they had a panel of mothers who had placed for adoption. And one of the things we noticed in that was that any mother who had placed for adoption, and they all had different stories. They all had different unique situations that put them there.
Yeah.
Some already had children, and it was like their last child, and they couldn't afford it. And so they had to place for adoption. You know, another one was like a very young girl who had been sexually assaulted and placed for adoption. Another one just wasn't ready to raise a child and her path, whatever else. And we were able to ask them questions and interview them. And then we had a panel with children who had been placed for adoption, and then mothers who had adopted. And we got to hear all the different elements. And when we walked out of there, I turned to my wife, and we had learned about open adoption and closed adoption. Open adoption is like you've seen with Alyssa, she's involved in our life. She's able to come over and see the baby, and there's an openness, and there's different levels of openness, but that's an open adoption. Closed is like, you don't know who your birth parents are. They're not involved. They don't see the baby, whatever else. And we walked out of there, and I turned to my wife and said, hey, if we're not willing to do an open adoption, I don't think I can do it. And she said, me too.
Yeah.
And we just agreed that we could arguably have a greater impact on a birth mother than even on a birth child. And that was important to us. And so just seeing how much it mattered, and no matter what the situation was, that no woman, that's not an easy decision to place a baby. And so we wanted to make sure that she was good. And then we thought it was best for the baby as well to know where they come from and everything else. So. Yeah, we stayed committed to that. It's been a really beautiful relationship. It
has. It's been very clear that that's been a wonderful relationship, because I haven't really seen that type of relationship with a lot of different adoptions and stuff.
Yeah, it's unique for sure.
I don't know. You guys got to figure it out.
I don't know about that, man. It's still a process. Like people ask us about, how do you do this? And it's not easy, right? Yeah. Any relationship that you invest in is going to be hard. Right. There's going to be feelings, there's going to be emotions, there's going to be desires, and you got to have conversation. And we've had to have conversations, and we've had to, figure out what each of us want and what's important, and feelings get hurt, and we cry together, we laugh together, but we're committed to the big picture of what we really want to create here. And so it's beautiful, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It never would be.
Yeah.
Like, you could already see, like, if you had given up your child, it's like, I really didn't want to do that, but it was the best interest of that child.
Yeah.
That was the big picture.
Yeah.
So I could appreciate that.
Yeah.
I could appreciate that. Especially maybe if her circumstances change, and then she's like, hey, I'm ready. It's like, no. But let's be together still.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, it's just the way that we speak about it, but even you said, if you'd given up your child, then we've learned all the different lingo and stuff.
Yeah.
They don't ever give up. And so they place the child, right? And we've learned all the different lingos because it's just the second nature. But what I've learned is that mothers don't give up on that. They didn't give up on being a mom. The circumstances were that they love their child so much that they wanted what was best for them. And that was the honorable decision that they made. It's beyond me. I don't know how they could ever make that decision. But it's really beautiful and special that they have that much love for a child to do what they think's best for them.
But it's true. And I like the fact that you clarified that, because you're right. It is a placement. It's not giving up.
Yeah.
Because if it was giving up, like they probably like, well, I don't care to see you ever again.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of dads that do that. Hey, we're good. I don't even know who you are, man. So I can appreciate that.
100%.
This podcast, we talk about rags to riches. You had an interesting story. Like when I met you the first time, we were talking about how you started building, scaling out. You built out a door knocking business. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was like in the satellite space.
Yep.
You built like it was funny. You built a behemoth of a business, but you told me you're out working. You're like, dude, this is dumb. I could do this. And you're like, what was the switch that went in your head that caused you to say, the heck, man, I could build this?
You know, it was interesting. I don't know if it was like, I could build this, but I think I caught the vision early on.
Yeah.
When I was starting selling for another company, just knocking on doors, I caught the vision of door-to-door sales as an industry, right? Yes. It's the push marketing instead of the pull marketing. Like you're out there, or maybe it's pull out. We're out there.
I feel like it's push, dude.
Yeah. You're out there pushing your product and you're getting inside people's homes. You're not just waiting for them to come to you, right? Yep. So yeah, it's the push marketing. And I saw the vision of that. I realized that it really is a numbers game. I think it could be any product. I think a lot of people still think that, man, door to door, that still exists. Like that's the old days. No, it's still very, very effective because people are all about convenience. And if you come to them and you find the right person at the right time, they're unsatisfied with what they've got. They're unsatisfied with their current situation. And you show them like there's a better way. Yep. And you make it really easy for them. Yep. Like some of the things we do to make it really easy is we come and we present them all of the options. We tell them all the pains that they already have because we know the customer really well. Right. But then we also say, hey, by the way, we can fix this problem. We'll have a technician here in like 2 hours. Yep. You know, are you available now? Or in 2 hours, I can have a technician here. Same day he's installing this service and you're up and running and there's no hiccup. Like we make it really, really easy for them. So I caught the vision of like, this business model works. And if you can learn how to sell and you can teach other people how to sell, there's a lot of opportunity to leverage this, right? And to grow and expand. And so coming off of a mission, having knocked doors and seeing like people make magnificent changes in their life and understanding like anything is possible. Right. That's kind of what was instilled. But like starting my own business was actually more out of necessity, at least the way that I felt, instead of out of like driven by vision at the time. There was the vision of the business, but I was committed to the company I was with. I went from a sales rep to a manager to a regional manager. I was bought in to the company. Yeah. But we got the train ahead of the train tracks. We didn't have the operations in place to support the growth. Yeah. And if you've been a part of anything like that, too many sales can be a problem. And when we had too many sales, there wasn't fulfillment there. We weren't able to install. The housing wasn't getting paid. Things like that. Things were falling through the cracks. And so we started with a lot of reps that summer that I was responsible for, that I put my name on the line for. Yep. And my reputation is so important to me. And it didn't work out. They weren't supported. They didn't feel like I honored what I said the company was going to do. And again, it wasn't all the company's fault. I was learning and growing as fast as I could, and I didn't know what I didn't know. So I definitely made mistakes along the way as well. But at the end of that year, I felt so responsible that I felt like if I'm going to put my name on the line, I have to have more control. Yep. And that's where, out of necessity, I decided, hey, I can't stand by what the company says they're going to do. I've got to be able to be the company in order to stand by it. And so that's when I left and said, hey, you know, I don't have any risk right now. I don't have any family. I'm young. I'm 22 years old. What's the worst that could happen? If I'm the only guy in my company, so be it. I'll go sell and I'll get paid top dollar to sell in my own company. Yep. But luckily I was able to bring on, exceptional people and slowly grow year over year. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that came about. It
is just crazy that people do not realize how complicated fulfillment is. Yeah. I've taken 3 times now. I've lit up a company with too many sales and they couldn't fulfill it. And I literally straight up had to stop because I'm like, you guys cannot fulfill anymore. Yeah. And I'm like, So I've had to pivot and change. And then it did cause me to start creating companies to close gaps. Yeah. But dude, that was the fuel. Yeah. So you learned how to sell. You started a company out of necessity. It seems like most millionaires actually find themselves in that spot. The guys that finally make it. The only way to close the gap is to solve their own problem.
For sure.
Just out of curiosity on their leadership level, because I already know there's guys that know how to sell. There's guys that know how to sell the heck out of everything, but that doesn't mean that they actually have skills to like run and operate a business. What kind of helped you in there? Because I know that's fundamental.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I was born. I think some leaders are born, and I think you can learn how to be a leader as well, right? Yeah. But I feel like I was born a leader. Like I just, not to toot my own horn or whatever else, but I just felt like I always was influencing people to do. I was an influence as a young kid, I was an influence for good and I was an influence for bad. I was the guy that was like, hey, let's go throw snowballs at cars, you know, and I was also the one that's like, hey, let's go do some service and let's help somebody out, right?
Yeah.
And so I was a leader, and I think some of the elements there was I had a vision. I always knew what I wanted. I always was focused on figuring out what I wanted if I didn't, and going after something bigger than myself. I was always invested in growth. I was always invested in expansion. I never thought I was the smartest guy in the room. I always felt like I needed to ask questions, that there was more to learn, and I was aware of my weaknesses. I think good leaders are very aware of their weaknesses and where they're strong and where they're weak, and they're willing to bring other people in for that. And honestly, what really took the company to the next level was finding other really incredible leaders and trusting them.
Yep.
You know, I think one of the hardest decisions that I ever made was my first big salary operations person. I think at the time it was only like $75,000, but $75,000 salaried employee was a very tough decision for me to make, because
it's like 90 grand by the time you roll all this stuff up into
it.
But
again, you look at it as like, if you've never paid that before, the things that are going through my mind is like, well, this person's an operations person. They're not generating sales. So I can't draw a one-to-one line with like, what you do get this return, right?
Right.
But I did have that experience of like not having the operations there to support sales. And you have to understand that like sales, drives the machine, but there is no machine without the operations. And so you've got to have those people in place. And so, but trusting that and allowing somebody who knew like the details and cross the T's and dot the I's, that person really transformed our business. And without him, we never would have been what we were.
Is this Jay you're referring to?
No, Jay was my partner. This is 𝗥𝗴𝗀𝗀𝗄𝗏.
Andrew Peterson.
Yeah. He's an operations genius and really just took our company, to a whole nother level. And, obviously before we were done, he was getting paid multiple six figures a year, and it was easy to pay at that point when you realized how good he was. But then bringing on good sales leaders, it's not always your best sales guy. I think that's a mistake that I had to make, and a lot of people do. Yeah. Your top sales guy is now your manager. It's like, no, really good sales guys aren't always really good managers. Yep. In fact, it's very rare that you find really good managers and leaders being the very best salesperson. Sometimes they're just really good at selling, and that's what they should stay in their lane. And so a lot of lessons learned along the way, for sure.
I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. It's fascinating because when I asked you, was this Jay that you brought on? Because I remember when you told me your partner, Jay's probably, like, I don't know Jay's age, but if I was to guess, he's probably close to 60. Like he's at least about 30 years your senior or close to that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, say what? I'm like, I got you as this young guy that like built this company, scaled it out, and then I asked you, why'd you bring in Jay? And you're like, didn't he do your books or accounting or help you track money?
So Jay actually came in 3 years into the business.
Okay.
Started the business, got going. I mean, we were running payroll through it was Excel spreadsheets. Like, it was like trying to, like, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't have any college background, didn't have any business background. Like, we're just going, right?
Yep.
And we sold our way out of every problem. Luckily, we could sell, and we could just pay for every problem and every mistake and overcome it and learn. And Jay came in, and he was the gray hairs, literally and figuratively, in the business. He had the experience. He knew what he was doing. Yeah. And, Jay really great lessons in the way that he approached it. I've learned tremendous amount from him, but just from the very beginning, Jay came in and said, look, I believe that I can bring value to this business. Bring me on for 3 months. You don't have to pay me anything. Yeah. If at the end of 3 months you don't believe that I brought value, you can let me go. Yeah. And if at the end I am, then I'm in and I'm an equal partner. And we said, okay. And it was an easy decision at that point. 3 months later, it was like, we can't live without you, And so, at the beginning, he really did help us legitimize our finances, our payroll, our bookkeeping, and everything else. But he was the leader of the company, became the CEO of the company. Me and him ended up buying out our third partner, I think year 4. Okay. And then built for 6 more years together till 10 years.
10 years total.
Built together. So he was an exceptional person, mentor, leader, and I think we complemented each other very well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Part of what I like about your story is how you described how Jay gets into it. Is he made you an irresistible offer. Yeah. He's like, bro, if it don't work, man, you could just send me packing. Yep. But if I change things and you see the value, like I don't see enough people doing that now. Yeah. Like they don't want to prove out their value. They just want to take it. And then you're like, dude, that sucked, bro. Yep. Like that didn't really help me at all.
Yeah. Yeah. He truly understood making sure that it was a win-win relationship and it stayed that way, which was really cool.
So that's kind of the backstory how you did this. Okay. Now you've got a lot of other business adventures. Okay. So now you exit doing the door-to-door sales industry. So then where'd you transition from there?
Yeah. So I started consulting in the medical space. There was a cancer genetic screening labs, and they were doing tests to find out if somebody had a genetic mutation that was commonly found in cancer. And if they did, they could do preventative care for cancer. Learned a ton in there. It was a great learning experience. Also realized that like healthcare, you know, I didn't know much about healthcare, and healthcare is very regulated and it's hard to do business in, but learned a ton, met some incredible people in that path. After consulting with that, I started a coaching company. My coaching company is focused on business and personal development, the two things that I was very passionate about. I've been doing a lot of personal development work, and obviously business development was kind of second nature as I've been growing and scaling the business over the last few years. And then just doing deals. I was doing hard money loans. I got into purchase order financing for a little while. I would invest into deals and then syndicate funds. So I was learning how to raise money, and I became an active investor. For the previous 10 years, I was a passive investor, really focused on investing in my own business. But I started investing into private equity, different deals, and along the way I was raising capital to be a part of that. And then I got into buying dental practices. Saw an opportunity, had a conversation with a friend about kind of doing something in the healthcare space, but like not so much traditional healthcare. And he's like, well, why don't you go buy dental practices? I was like, well, can you own a dental practice without being a dentist? And he's like, yeah, you can. Or he's like, I don't know. And so I went on this journey. That started the journey of kind of looking into it and realized you can own a dental practice in 6 states without being a dentist. In the rest of the states, you can own the operations aspect of it. You can own all the assets, but you can't be involved in the clinical side. So technically you can. And then I realized that like, that's the move, is that it's becoming more corporate. People are buying up dental practices, consolidating them, unifying a brand, systems and processes in place, and they're able to scale through acquisition. And then they're selling off and exiting to private equity. Private equity is doing the same thing, and they're just gobbling these up. And so I started onto a journey there, and learning about that, got really excited. Thing about me is I'm kind of ready, aim, fire. Ready, fire, aim. And I just get going. I just start, and then I learn, and then I make decisions, and I pivot and decide where I want to go from there. And I got into this. The goal was we're going to go buy 20 practices. We're going to consolidate them all. We're going to unify the brands. We're going to improve the systems and processes. We're going to get the revenues up, and then we're going to turn around and exit them to private equity. And, you can buy them at a 3 multiple. And if you have 20 practices, you can
3 multiple.
You can buy them at a 3 multiple.
Cheap.
Yep. And then you can sell them at a 8 to 12 multiple if you have multiple of them together. It's just an arbitrage play.
Holy cow.
And whether or not you raise the values or not, you just by consolidating get a higher multiple. And so that was kind of the play. It was really exciting, and it's a great business opportunity. It's legitimate. Got in, partnered with a couple different guys. We got up to 4 practices. And then I started meeting with private equity, different groups that would be the potential buyers.
Yeah.
And one of them I met with was like, don't wait until you get to 20. Just come join us now. Let's partner now and do this. And I was like, oh, okay. And it really threw like a loop and where we were going. But we brought them all our books and everything. And they looked at it and they said, hey, you're not big enough. You're not big enough. This isn't the type of practice we'll buy. You got to be at a certain size. You got to meet our minimums. And I was like, okay, well, tell me why you only do that. And they explained their reasoning on everything. And I said, well, thank you, download that. I don't want to do this either. So I got to get out of these practices and go find the other ones. And so ended up exiting 3 of them. We've got a 4th one that we're selling right now. I've got the opportunity with that bigger company to go help bring practices to them and do some sort of consolidated partnership where they know the operations and I'm just kind of more of a headhunter. And that's something that I may or may not dive into. I've just kind of learned like who I want to be doing business with and how I want to be doing business is really where I'm at in my life. That's kind of the most important part, is like, who am I partnering with? Who am I spending my time with? And I love dentists, but they're not business minded. They're more technical people. That's why the opportunity is there.
Of course.
And, so we'll kind of see where that goes, but that got me into the buying and selling of businesses.
Yeah.
Before, like, younger Jeremy was involved in like really making the transition out of working in the business to working on the business.
Right.
And I've learned how to work on the business and leverage and have leaders and people running the business. And then the dental side of things and the business acquisition, the mergers, acquisitions, is instead of working on the business, it's working above the business.
Okay.
Where now the business is the product. Instead of buying products low and selling products high in a business, you buy a business low and you sell a business high. And then when you combine them, you can also increase the value of these practices. And so that really intrigues me. That part of business really intrigues me. And so I've recently ventured into mergers and acquisitions, and I'm really interested, as we started out by talking about, is brokering deals and learning how to help sell businesses so I can learn the structures of businesses and learn the different ways to exit them. And along the way, I'm sure there'll be opportunities to buy into businesses and consult and help grow them. So that's what I'm most passionate about right now.
There's a question I've got for you right in here, because You said a few things in here where I think people screw up. You almost seem like you were almost downplaying the fact that you ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
When if you look at success, it probably came because you ready, fired, aim. What would you say to somebody that's like
ready, aim, fire?
Ready, aim, fire. Like they sit there and they analyze everything to death.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, dude, you just got into a loop of analysis process. You're never going to go anywhere. You're stuck. Yeah. Your time's got to be perfect. Like, when's it going to be perfect?
Yeah. I mean, have you ever stood over a golf ball and you pause with your driver right out there and you pause just a second too long and then you shank it, right? Or if you've held the gun up and you're like ready and then you're like aiming and then you're just like, oh, I want to get it right there. But your arm now gets a little bit tired. And then it's like, you're off anyway. Like you take too long, right? For me, I'm like, let's get one down range, see where it landed, and then make an adjustment.
Yeah.
And then make an adjustment. I got plenty of ammo, right?
Yeah.
Let's just keep shooting. So that's honestly been the way that that's what I encourage people to do. Start. The hardest part for me is starting. And I know that if I start thinking about it, instead of just starting, I can spend all day thinking about it. I can justify all the reasons why it won't work. I can ask enough people for their opinions. I can go through all these processes that really just keep me from getting anything done. And like imperfect progress is better than perfect progress. I'd rather just get going. And so that's how I've always been. And probably a big part of it's that I'm just really impatient.
But you got to be impatient for profits, right?
I agree. Yeah.
I got plenty of time for profits. I bet you better have a fat checking account, bro.
Yeah.
It's about ready to get emptied.
Yeah.
One thing you also said in that transaction is you're like, we sold ourselves out of problems.
Yeah.
Because you're like, dude, I didn't know, right? Mm-hmm. Then I'm like, okay, screw it. Okay, fix that. How do I sell myself out of it? How do I sell myself out? How many times has that happened to you? Just the fact that you mentioned it.
I mean, if you think about the first 3 years of our business, we didn't know what we didn't know.
Yep.
And so really it was like, we didn't have payroll. We didn't have, just figuring all of it out. Like we had to sell and make up for those mistakes so we could pay to make these things right.
Yep.
And so as long as you have enough sales and you have enough income, it can mask that, right?
Yep.
But you have to get to a point where you put systems and processes in place in order to take advantage of that growth. So they're not just, what I've learned is that you're paying for an education one way or another.
Oh yeah.
Some people are book smart and they want to go to school. They want to get a standard education and that works for them and they learn and that's how they learn.
Yep.
For me, it's by doing, and both of them are going to be expensive, but pick your hard, pick your expensive, right? I'd rather have the picture book instead of the other one. So, I think that's just kind of the path I chose.
It's crazy though, is because the people that got the degrees, you're like, yeah, I'll hire you because you got a degree, but they work for the guys that don't have the degrees. Mm-hmm. And you're like, is that like backwards? Dude. Yeah, it's crazy. Like you said, dental practices. I'm buying dental practices because they're great technicians. But then you say, hey, what'd you learn about marketing? Yeah. What'd you learn about how to sell stuff? What'd you learn about hustling clients?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. But I lost, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000.
Yeah.
I'm like, so you got a skill, but you don't know how to go get the money. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, you're gonna have a hard life.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it's 3 multiples, man.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it is.
Well, it's tough. They're incredible in the chair, and they're trained for that. Yep. They're not trained on payroll and hiring employees and firing and managing and leading and scaling and marketing and all of those different things. And so they think they want to go start a dental practice and they want to own their business, right?
Yeah.
But then they realize they don't want to do all that stuff. What they really want is they just want to be in the chair. They want to clock in, clock out, work 4 days a week, make $250,000, $300,000 a year, and not deal with anything else. Again, I think it's just important for people to figure out what their lane is and to stay in it. And so when you figure out that that's your lane, don't be afraid to give up the ego of owning your own thing and let somebody else come in and do the parts that they're good at and find a strategic partnership. So sometimes we just have to do that. We have to get out of our own way and not try and do what we're not good at. I know I'm really not good at the X's and the O's. I'm not the guy in your mouth. I never could have been a dentist. I never could have been a doctor. Those aren't the things that I'm good at. So, dude,
I can appreciate that. I mean, you just hit on something that I even run into with myself. I'm like, God, I start doing stuff. I'm like, I hate that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, why am I doing it? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I used to try to create my own graphics and stuff. I'm like, freaking, that takes me all day. Mm-hmm. I'm like, dude, that's like I don't know, it's a $10, $20 an hour job that somebody could just punch it out.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's my time worth?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I screwed up. I got to hire that one out. Screwed that one up.
Yeah, I have made that a huge focus in my life. And what I do and with a lot of my clients too is I draw a square and then I put, a horizontal and a vertical line through it. So you got 4 squares.
Yeah.
In the top, so that the vertical line is what you love and the horizontal line is what you're good at. Okay. So that means that the top right corner is what you love and what you're good at in that quadrant. That's where the majority of your time should be spent. Yep. I'm great at it and I love it. Right. Yep. And then there's the things that you love that you're not good at. Those are the things that should be a hobby, right? Yep. That you're learning more about, but it's not like your main thing. It's not like your main focus. I love it, but I'm not good at it. So you should learn more about that. That's a passion project, right? Yeah. Then over here on the bottom right is going to be what you're not good at, but you love. Or sorry, love, but you're not good at is here. Here's what you're good at, but you don't love. Yes. Okay. You're really good at it, but you don't love it. This is the thing that you need to teach somebody else how to do. Absolutely. You don't love it, but you're good at it. The hard part here is that you're like, well, I could do it faster than anybody else, and it takes more time to teach somebody else. But if you can just invest that amount of time and allow somebody to make enough mistakes to learn to be as good as you, then they can take over that thing, and you no longer have to spend so much time. But I think that's where most people spend most of their time, is the thing that they're good at, but they don't enjoy doing. Yeah. Right? Teach somebody. If you're really good at it, you can teach somebody else how to do it. And then in the bottom left corner, you should never, ever even touch is you're not good at and you don't love. If you don't love it and you're not good at it, like somebody else should be doing that from day one. Yeah. You don't have to know everything in order to run a business. You hire people that are better than you, that are passionate about it. Like crazy enough, there's people out there that are really good at things that you don't like, and people that really like it and they love it. Like, so give it to them. Just let them have it. Let them have it. Don't pull your hair out there.
It's crazy because I look at it like, as you're even describing that, there's things that are high level, high value things, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so easy to get stuck in the thick of things that just don't contribute much. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's like a do loop. It's like hard thing or whatever I got to figure out or you want to do or whatever. And then you procrastinate and you're going off into this do loop, and before long you're spending time. You delay doing things that should have got done when you could have just hired it out, got it done, and focused on whatever generates revenue. Like if that's what it is you're after, right? Yeah. That's what I'm in pursuit of. Is like what causes the needle to move? Those are the things I want to hit. Yeah. If they don't move, like we need to figure something else out. Yep. Like when you take and you do that presentation, because these guys that are attending your event, near as I can tell, you must have a high level coaching program that these guys are coming and joining, right?
Yeah, they're entrepreneurs. They're all 6- and 7-figure earners. Most of them own their own business. If not, they're high level sales executives. What most of them come to me for, which has been fascinating for me. I would say the majority of them sign up with me. They live. I think we're in 7 different states. Oh, okay. So they're all over the country. 15 guys in the group, and I would say the majority of them found me on Instagram, and they looked at my business, and they also personal, but they came to me thinking, hey, you can help me grow my business. You can help me take this to the next level. You can help me figure out these problems that are there. And what they end up finding is that the thing that they need to work on the most is themselves. Okay. And when they get themselves in alignment, then that fixes the business. Fix yourself, you fix your business. And so it's a lot more personal development. It's, really figuring out what you're afraid of, what's holding you back. What are your limiting beliefs? What is the blind spots that you don't see about yourself or that are holding you back? What about your relationships? How are you showing up to your relationships? Getting those things in alignment, and then they can go, and actually the business part's like really easy. Strategy is really easy. What most people struggle with is figuring out what they want. What do I want? What do I really want here? Someone comes to me with a challenge, and I'm like, okay, cool, thanks for the challenge. What do you want the outcome to be? Yeah. And then they go into this loop of like, well, this is what so-and-so wants for me. This is what my wife wants, my parents want. This is what society tells me I should want. Yeah, but what do you want? And so it's really been fascinating for me that like at every level of business, 6, 7 figures, doesn't matter, multiple 7 figures, there's this like personal development, working on becoming a better version of me, a better father, better husband, better leader, better human being. And by doing so, your business does better.
Just out of curiosity, as you're describing that, okay, so 15 guys come in. Mm-hmm. Every one of them probably show up thinking that, okay, I want you to come in here and show me how to fix my business, right? Mm-hmm. What percentage of them do you think will have the epiphany that they got to fix them before they can actually really solve any business? Every one of them.
Every one of them. That you saw me have there, like it was 90% personal development. We did strategy. We talked about Mastermind around the things that guys wanted to work on and things that they need in their business. But those problems get solved so fast. If you think about anything in business, like any challenge you're dealing with, somebody else has dealt with it before. And that's the cool power of masterminds. You can go really fast. Somebody comes in and goes, hey man, I don't know how to build this sales team, or I'm struggling with this. Perfect. There's 12 other people that have done that. And they're like, here's what you need to do. You need to figure out your compensation plan. You need to incentivize people. You need to do X, Y, and Z, right? You need to hold people accountable. You need to track your numbers. We can give you all those details. That's really fast, right?
Yeah.
In order for it to actually work, you've got to work it. And who's got to work it? You've got to work it. So if you're going to work it, you got to be the kind of person that shows up for what you say you're going to do. And where are these patterns coming from? Well, these patterns are coming from you doing years and years of saying you're going to do something and not doing it.
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing it? Well, because you're afraid of something. Well, what are you afraid of? Well, you don't want to let somebody down. Why don't you want to let somebody down? What is it that you're really struggling with? Well, why don't you love yourself? Whatever it is, like there's these things that really it may sound really fluffy to some people, but really that's what we've found is like, it's this inner work. It's this inner, it's working on myself. It's becoming a better version of me. It's realizing what's really holding me back.
Yeah.
And really what that does is that you don't just transform your business, you really transform your life. You become happier, which is really what we're all trying to do anyways. Just be happy.
God, you know, it's funny hearing you describe that because I think it was Monday this week. I had a guy named Gerald Rogers. You know Gerald?
I don't.
He describes the place, he describes what you did. In essence, he was living everybody else's expectations, what his wife expected, what society expected. And he wanted to do that because he wanted his wife to be very happy, right? Mm-hmm. And finally, his wife's like, dude, I've had enough of it. It's like, you're two people. Mm-hmm. You're trying to be, you're you, and then you're trying to be what everybody else expects of you. And it's like, and so it kind of blew up. And after that, he really had the epiphany you're describing. But what's fun to hear about the way you're describing it is Gerald, in my mind, is kind of like a guru, that this is his primary profession. Mm-hmm. And he focused on helping grow businesses. But you legitimately brought people in to grow their businesses and then figured out, dude, you guys are all messed up in the head.
You say it like that.
But we have these limiting beliefs. We got these things like, here's an example. I run into this all the time with my wife, okay? So a kid does a thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're like, well, how did my parents do it? Mm-hmm. And then I have to stop and I ask myself and I ask my wife, I'm like, what if they did it wrong? Like, I can't say that my parents nailed it. Why would I want to rinse and repeat crap that don't work? But I catch myself acting out what those past experiences. Mm-hmm. And they might not serve you.
Well, and come back to how we started this and how we met each other, right?
Yeah.
Right versus wrong, instead of right versus wrong, working versus not working.
Yes.
Like, did that work? It might work for you, but it might not work for your kid. And you got 8 kids. What works for one kid probably doesn't work for every kid.
No.
So what's working? And guess what? Kids don't come with handbooks, and parents don't have these manuals that know here's how it's supposed to be done.
Yep.
So you're just trying to figure it out. And so everyone's situation is different. The reason that guys came to me and that this has been like the largest aha moment for me is because it was my journey. I went to a coach. I finally decided I need leadership 7 years into business. I'd been the leader. I'd been the guy holding the weight of the world on my shoulders. Yeah. I'd been the guy telling everybody what to do and trying to grow the business and whatever else. And I had mentors along the way. And I had Jay as a partner who was wise and a father figure and a leader to me. But at the end of the day, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I went to get coaching. And guess what I found out? I found out that I needed to be able to handle the weight of the world. I needed to figure out my worth. I needed to figure out what freedom meant to me. Yeah. And I learned all of that. And so, you might go to a different business coach and it literally is straight all strategy. But for me, because of my path, I think I've directed people towards this. How about you just work on being the best version of you? And guess what? By doing so, you can see clearly and you actually can build this business. But if you're not good with yourself, if you're not in a solid place, and if you're not confident and happy and fulfilled, it doesn't matter what we fix on your business. I spent years and years and years chasing the dollar, chasing the car, chasing the accolades and the achievement. And guess what? I got there and I realized this is empty. Like,
you said that at that event, dude.
100% empty.
You said it.
I did. My most depressing day of my life was my 30th birthday. All growing up as a little kid, when I was 12 years old, my buddies playing King of the Hill, shoving each other down the hill and whatever. We'd have these conversations of like, by the time I'm 30, I'll do X, Y, and Z. I'll have the house. I'll be a millionaire. I'll have a wife. I'll have a kid. Like all the achievement, all these things that society tells us and whatever else. And they were things I wanted.
Yeah.
Right? My 30th birthday, I was completely depressed. And it took all day for me to finally go, aha. It was this realization that I always said that by the time I'm 30, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And guess what? It wasn't that I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I had done every single one of them, but I didn't feel any different.
Yeah.
And when I realized that, I was like, okay, so what was I wanting to feel?
Yeah.
Those things were not going to fill me up. Yeah. Those things were still wants, still desires, still on the list, but I wanted to be free. And I didn't want to sacrifice freedom to have those.
I wanted to love myself. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to be fulfilled. Yeah. And so that's what I've found in this coaching is like, that's what most people are really struggling with. That's really what's holding us back. Figuring out how to make this thing work. If you want it bad enough and if you care enough, you'll find a way. And guess what? We've got the answers. I don't have all the answers, but I can help you figure out how to find the answers, right? It's just like having the courage to just face it.
Dude, there's truth on that.
Yeah.
I watched part of your own personal journey because the Jimmy Rex, one of your friends, right?
Yeah.
Near as I can tell, you must be inside his group too, right? And you're a part of his group, one of his masterminds.
I'm a good friend and one of the I've been taking part in it for sure.
Because he was wanting to help you guys figure out how to conquer some fears. And so I watched you. Did you go swim with the sharks?
I did.
Dude, like, bro, that's like nuts.
Yeah.
What was it like swimming with sharks? Because
that was my biggest fear. So when Jimmy was planning his program, he was talking to me about it, and we were talking back and forth about the different things he was doing. And this was one of the things he put on there. And I said, I have to go with you. So I'm not part of the group, but he allowed me to come on that. I said, I've got to do that because that's my biggest fear. Like, one, the claustrophobia of being scuba diving. I wasn't scuba certified, going down way below the surface, not having control of my environment. Yeah. And then an animal that's twice my size that could literally annihilate me if it wanted to. Yeah. Like, I got to face that fear. And he's like, cool, come. So I went with him, and what was fascinating is the closer I got certified in scuba diving right before. So my first dive is going to be with sharks. My first ever dive is going to be with sharks. Didn't think that one through, but like, okay. But the closer I got, landing in the country, hopping on the boat, suiting up, getting ready to jump in the water, the closer I got, the less scared I was. Okay. Which usually the closer I get to a fear, the more like you're feeling it, then you face it, and then you feel amazing. But what they do is they help you feel like it's so normal. Like all these guys, they do this trip every day out to the sharks. They know where they are. They feed them. They've got a process, whatever else. And so they're like, these sharks, they know they're going to get fed. They're going to be fine, right? Yeah. They're not going to do this. But don't touch them. Don't do this. Don't sit there looking like you're a dead fish. Make sure you're moving around if they're swimming right at you. Yeah. Like, so they give you some of those tips. And so like I started feeling really good. Yeah. And I really, jumping into the water, was not scared. Going down, descending, getting down by the sharks, I was good. And I was swimming around with them. There was, at the first place we went, there were these reef sharks, and they're, 10-foot sharks, and they're just swimming all around. And I'm totally cool. And then one comes swimming right at me. Okay. And I have this moment where I'm like, okay, I wasn't afraid, but now they can tell me all they want, that they feed these sharks, that they don't have attacks, whatever else, but that's a wild animal. He's not a trained pet. And if he decides he wants to end me, he can. Right. But what else option do I have other than just enjoying this moment? And so it was actually a really serene moment, just going eye to eye and being like, thank you for letting me be in your environment. Yes. And you're a beautiful animal, and please don't eat me, And it was really cool. Like it was very, very fulfilling to face that, to feel that, to be in that environment. And we swam with 4 different types of sharks. The pinnacle was a 14-foot hammerhead shark that literally swam right up, right over our heads. And we got to just see this beautiful creature. And it was really, really cool to face the fear, but also be able to just experience something so cool.
Face it. Wow.
Yeah.
So that right there is a incredible experience. Another one I saw that you did, you were bungee jumping freaking into, like, off a cliff into a gorge or something. I was like, you're looking at it. Normally cameras don't really do a good job capturing it. And like, you captured enough that if that wasn't good enough, that must have been crazy.
It was insane. That was one of those, again, at that point, the scariest thing I had done in my life. Yeah. There was a 500-foot cliff. And it was actually a rope swing. And so
that was a rope swing?
That was a rope swing. So we were harnessed in, and you jump off right here, and it swings you all the way out. And based on the laws of physics, you're not going to come back and hit the same wall. But you swing all the way out. I think you descend about 300 feet, swing all the way out, but you're hanging 200 feet still above the ground. And then the scariest part is, like, once you've taken the jump and you get the adrenaline rush and you're swinging and you come to a stop, then you just have to hang there while you're waiting for the rope to come down, and you got to hook yourself in and then pull yourself all the way back up to the top.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So that was exhilarating, but really fun.
What happened when you got to the top? Did you get up to the top and then you had to walk your way back, or did they just zip you back? Or how'd you get, the point where you're attached is out there somewhere, right?
Yeah, there's a big contraption that, like, has a motor attached to it that pulls you up, and then you just climb up the wall at the very end and get hugs from all your brothers, whatever. But, like, there's something super powerful to facing your fears. And, you know, there was powerful moments for a lot of guys. That was one of my, I'm scared of heights. I'm just finding all these fears, scared of sharks, scared of heights, whatever else. Like it's this fear of death. Apparently it's causing you to face it. But when you face that fear and you overcome that fear, you realize how much more is possible and what you're capable of. It's really, really powerful.
Dude, people get afraid of they get afraid of all kinds of stuff, and I think it holds them back from breakthroughs.
Yeah, 100%.
One thing I've noticed you've done a good job is figuring out how to conquer them. Because when we were just at that event, man, it was clear that you were a leader. Like, I didn't know who you were from Adam, other than we just kind of did an introduction, if I'm not mistaken. But I do remember a moment where you were just like, I need a moment. And then you took your moment, but you weren't afraid of actually doing that. And I was just kind of like, it's like, snap, that dude's got like, whatever it was, but he's centered, knowing, like Jason Harvard said it one time, he goes, it's just knowing that I'm enough. And that must have been kind of what you were experiencing. How you were trying to figure something out, but you weren't afraid to express yourself in that sense.
Yeah, and I think I've had those moments of like struggling with knowing that I'm good enough, or that I fit in, or that I'm capable, or I'm not an imposter, or whatever else. I think we all struggle with that. I think that's a human emotion, a human experience that we're all having. Yeah. And so, you know, there's been times like that one where I had enough of the courage to just say, okay, I'm just going to lay it down right now. Here's where I'm at. And just trust the environment, right? Yeah. Whether it supports you or not, like sometimes you just got to go for it.
But like what's crazy is the fact that you had the courage. Like other people like me, we appreciated that.
Of course.
And it's funny because like, even though you appreciate it, then you find yourself not doing something like that somebody appreciate. Yeah. I was at church the other day and I was like, freaking, you guys got this heat on. It's way too, I'm freaking melting. And I should have gone back there and flipped the thermostat and fixed that. Because if I thought it was horrible, everybody else must have. Yeah. And I was like, chicken. But next time I'm getting there early, I'm fixing that thing. Like, I'm sick of this thing melting me. This is too much.
Yeah. Do it.
I saw those guys up there. They're like, Mike.
They're just waiting for
back there doing that. We're trying to knock him out with all his heat. And he's trying to cool down.
No.
So if you were to try to drop the biggest nuggets on us, like I've heard this question before. All right, so what do you go tell your 10-year-old self or 18-year-old self or whatever it is? It's like, all right, bro, this is how you figure. This is what you do. This is how you figure it out. This is how you turn your life around. This is how you get from A to Z. Like, what is it that you're going to share with yourself? So that somebody can say, oh, thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah. No, if I were to go back and talk to that same self, I would say keep firing, keep trying, keep showing up. You're going to fail and at times you're going to be misdirected. I got into a lot of trouble as a kid and it was misdirected energy, misguided, but they all taught me. There's not a part of my upbringing or my life or I got arrested for the first time in third grade.
Third grade,
putting smoke bombs in cars.
Wow.
We thought it'd be fun to light a smoke bomb, put it in the car, ring their doorbell, and run off and hide and watch them think that their car was on fire. Turns out we started a couple cars on fire.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so like 12 cars, by the way. We did that too. Yeah, in third grade. Kind of stupid, but like, you know, the creativity and whatever else, just a little misdirected, right? Yeah. Getting caught, getting in trouble was not, I hated the fact that I got caught for everything I did as a kid. I got caught. I thought it said something about me that I wasn't creative enough, that I was a chump, or I couldn't get away with stuff, whatever else. But honestly, the accountability that it forced me to take taught me how to take accountability. Yeah. Taught me the importance of owning up to the things that you do. Yeah. Had I gotten away with all of those things, I wouldn't have learned that lesson early enough in life, and it would have been much more painful later on in life. Yeah. So keep showing up, keep trying, keep making mistakes. Don't be so hard on yourself. Okay. Don't be so hard on yourself. When you make mistakes, when you get in trouble, or when you do something you shouldn't have done, forgive yourself. I held on to stuff way too long, and I let it become a part of my identity of who I was in such a negative, disempowering way. I would just encourage people to let things go. I think we all understand the importance of forgiving other people, but forgiving yourself is probably the hardest part. Telling the truth. I think that's a very simple principle that we all understand. And if I were to ask every person, like, do you tell the truth? They'd probably raise their hand and say yes. But then if I were to also say, who in here has also not told the truth at times? Every single person would raise their hand. Yeah, or they're still not telling the truth, right? Yeah. But the older I've got, the more I've realized the importance of telling the truth. Most importantly to yourself, but to everyone else, especially when it's not easy, because it builds trust and it allows you to be in alignment and in integrity with yourself and everybody else. And ultimately, that leads into the last one of like building trust. If you want to influence people, influence is built on trust. And influence is the key to really accomplishing anything that it is that you want to accomplish. And so tell the truth, you'll build trust, you'll be able to influence people, and you'll have a lot of success.
Yeah, probably the most important to say, be truthful when it's not even easy, right?
100%.
Because
especially when it's not easy.
Especially when it's not easy, because then that's the tipping point. It's like, oh man, you bailed on this. You should have come clean or whatever it was. Man, well, bro, I appreciate you being on the podcast and sharing all those great insights.
Absolutely.
Like it helps me, and I know it helps a lot of people just trying to figure out like that's why I try to invite like high caliber people on these shows, because I'm like, dude, like show us what you did. Like you could spend a decade. I mean, crazy thing is you've almost lived 2 decades of business in like 10 years or 15 years, but you're like, here's the gold nuggets. Like you don't waste all your time on this. You take that gold nugget, that gold nugget, that gold nugget, close the gaps faster. If you close it, then you create the good life, right?
Absolutely.
Man, love having you on the show, bro.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah.
We're good.